A red warning light flashed across the steel floor of Lunar Vault 9. Admiral Elena Reyes stood at the central console and pressed her thumb into the reader. Across the sector map, 3 Carthan battlecruisers fired heavy plasma charges directly into 12 unarmed refugee pods. Human escort ships held their positions and recorded every strike without returning fire. No radio calls went out. No warning shots were launched. 300 years of silence remained unbroken, even as 12,000 civilians died in open space. Hear how humanity defends its borders when the quiet years finally end. Reyes pulled her thumb off the glass scanner. The clean white paint on her command desk had no scratches or wear. For 2 centuries, no human warship had fired a live round in anger across the border lanes. Logistics Tech Vane dropped a metal data disk onto the desk. It rattled against the steel frame with a sharp clatter. "A surviving pilot sent this distress file," Vane said, his hands shaking as he adjusted his collar. "The Carthan fleet did not even scan for weapons. They knew our escorts were ordered not to shoot." Reyes picked up the disk and slotted it into the primary drive. The screen filled with helmet camera footage from a human transport pilot. Plasma fire tore through the transport's hull, turning the interior into a shower of burning sparks. The pilot did not curse or scream. He simply pointed his emergency camera at the Carthan flagship's serial markings before his signal went black. "Senate vote came through 5 minutes ago," Secretary General Vance said over the direct audio line from Earth. His voice sounded thin and tired. "It was unanimous. Every civilian representative signed the order." "Unseal the ledger, Admiral." Reyes walked to the far wall of Vault 9. She reached into her dark jacket and pulled out a heavy key attached to a worn silver compass pin. She inserted the key into the brass casing of the Omega ledger. The brass cylinder was cold and dark, untouched since the end of the Union Wars. She turned the key 90 degrees to the right. Deep underground, massive gears ground together as the automated locks cleared. High-voltage capacitors flooded with emergency power, filling the sealed chamber with the sharp tang of ozone. The brass cylinder slid open, revealing an ancient biometric interface glowing amber. Reyes pressed her entire palm against the grid. The amber light turned blood red. A low hum vibrated up through the soles of her leather boots as hidden relays fired across the solar system. In the dark troughs of the Marianas Trench, 4 miles beneath Earth's ocean surface, heavy concrete blast doors slid back against the seabed. Seawater rushed into the venting shafts with a muffled roar. Immense automated gantries lifted 3,000 armored strike hulls out of subterranean dry docks. They had no bridge windows, no life support systems, and no crew quarters. They were pure engines and weapons, built secretly over 2 centuries with 18% of Earth's annual production budget. On the dark side of the moon, crater floors split down the middle. Thick dust plumes billowed into the vacuum as hydraulic lifts raised 5,000 rail platforms into firing position. Automated shipyards powered up their primary fusion reactors in total darkness. Within 20 minutes, 20,000 automated hulls cleared their berths and turned toward Sector 89K. 200 light-years away, Supreme Commander Varric leaned his 3-meter reptilian frame over the tactical table of the Carthan flagship Iron Fang. He ran a 4-clawed hand over his scarred snout and pointed at the sensor display. "The human escort fleet is retreating," Varric growled, his golden-slit eyes narrowing as he adjusted his heavy shoulder armor. "They leave their border posts unguarded. They are weak, just as our spies reported. Signal the Armada. We take Sector 89K before nightfall." "My lord," his chief sensor officer called out from the lower pit. "Our long-range probes detect strange power surges near the asteroid belt. The energy signatures do not match any known human ship." Varric slammed a heavy claw onto the console. "It is space dust or system noise. Human ships carry light thermal emitters for ice mining. They have no standing army. Move the 3rd Armada forward." 6,000 Carthan battlecruisers jumped into real space at the edge of the obsidian shelf. The dense iron asteroid cluster drifted in silence, dark and cold against the background of distant stars. In the center of the belt sat Task Force Orion, a small group of 2,000 human frigates. Their engines were powered down to baseline levels, their shields completely offline. Varric laughed, a deep rattling sound that echoed through the bridge of the Iron Fang. They do not even raise their shields to die, target their lead ship and clear the sector. Inside the command bunker on the moon, Reyes watched the 6,000 Carthan targets packed tightly into the central corridor of the asteroid belt. The enemy armada filled the narrow lane, bounded on all sides by millions of tons of drifting iron rock. Target lock established by all automated platforms, Vane reported, his voice steady now as he read the tactical board. Task Force Orion is in position. Reyes pressed the open channel transmission button. Her voice broadcast directly into the bridge of every Carthan warship. Supreme Commander Varric, you have entered protected human territory after committing war crimes against civilian transports. You have 30 seconds to power down your engines and surrender your command. Varric leaned into the comms pickup and bared his sharp teeth. You offer threats with 2,000 unshielded frigates against my armada. We will grind your ships into scrap and burn your home world. Time has expired, Reyes said quietly. She did not raise her voice. Varric raised his claw to order the attack, but a sudden red flash blinded the bridge crew. The main tactical display shorted out as every sensor channel overloaded at once. Across the obsidian shelf, the outer crust of 300 giant iron asteroids flaked away under hydraulic pressure. Hidden beneath the rock layers were massive multi-barrel rail accelerators and heavy torpedo silos, built into the solid iron cores over decades of quiet construction. The decoy asteroids turned on their axis, locking their heavy barrels onto the Carthan flank. At the same instant, the 2,000 frigates of Task Force Orion brought their primary reactors to full power. Their outer hull plates slid back, exposing high-density tungsten rail bays. Varric stared at his secondary monitor in horror. Cold sweat slicked his scales as 6,000 enemy targets multiplied into 40,000 firing nodes, surrounding his fleet from every angle. On the bridge of the Resolute Dawn, Reyes picked up a ceramic mug from her console and took a slow drink of cold water. She set the mug down cleanly on the steel tray. Execute pattern Omega, she said. No warning, no speech, no target left standing. At 04:12 UTC, the space between the iron asteroids ceased to be a vacuum. Thousands of solid tungsten rods accelerated to .05 light speed, tearing through the void in straight, blinding lines. The heavy metal rounds hit the Carthan lead battlecruisers before their defensive shields could register the incoming kinetic force. Physical metal slammed through energy barriers, hull armor, and main engine blocks without stopping. Thermal readouts on Varric's console spiked to sun-core temperatures as plasma reactors ruptured across his front lines. Cruisers split down their keels like dried clay. A silent wall of blinding white light illuminated the dark shelf as 300 Carthan warships exploded simultaneously. The kinetic impact tore through fuel bays, triggering secondary chain detonations that swept down the Imperial battle lines. Varric grabbed his console tray as the Iron Fang shuddered violently from nearby shockwaves. The forward sensor feeds died one by one. Whole battle squadrons vanished from the tactical grid in fractions of a second. Shields failing, the sensor officer screamed over the roar of dying systems. Targeting arrays cannot track the rounds. They are firing from inside the rocks. A second salvo of hypersonic swarm torpedoes launched from the lunar hulls, curving through the debris field to strike the surviving Carthan cruisers from behind. Armor plating peeled away under the explosive pressure, scattering melted iron and shredded hull panels into the void. Varric fell to his knees on the steel deck of his dying bridge. His four-clawed hands gripped the edge of the shattered display. On the central view screen, his 6,000-ship armada was gone. Only burning metal scrap, drifting plasma clouds, and glowing hull fragments remained scattered across the belt. The entire engagement had lasted 11 seconds. In Lunar Vault 9, the main tactical screen cleared of red enemy markers. Space across Sector 89K fell completely silent. Automated human salvage vessels immediately moved out from behind the lunar craters, extending their mechanical arms to collect drifting debris and search for survivors among the ruined Carthan hulls. Behind them, hospital ships turned their searchlights toward the surrounding space, ready to receive non-combatants. Reyes adjusted the silver compass pin on her dark jacket. She walked over to the central console and picked up the heavy Omega ledger. The brass casing was hot to the touch, humming with the residual energy of 6,000 automated firing solutions. She set the cylinder back into its mounting bracket and turned her key to the left. The heavy gears locked into place with an audible click. The red light faded back to a dark, dormant amber, sealing the automated defense network back into the depths of the Earth and Moon. On the Carthan capital world of Vorkara, the Supreme Command Chamber went dead silent as the central fleet link disconnected. The primary map screen reset to 0 active units. Reyes stood quietly in the center of Vault 9. The clean white paint on her command desk reflected the steady green lights of the normal monitoring grid. Outside the thick reinforced viewport, the dark vacuum of space stretched out endless and calm, cold tungsten casings cooling slowly in the dark.